Hello and welcome to the Reef Card Kit Workshop. I'm Tricia Morris at Club Scrap. We're going to have a lot of fun together. Now, if this is your first time taking a workshop with me, maybe consider watching the video first and then making the cards along with me. You might find it's a little bit easier. Also remember, you can work at your own pace. Press pause as much as needed. I've got my printed instructions handy, and I also have my papers from the kit. What I'd like to start out by doing is sorting the papers in the order we'll be using them, and that just saves a little time. So I like to hold the paper upright so I can see easily from the top edge, and we're going to be looking for that beautiful shade of yellow. Just grab one sheet of that and then just put it on your work surface, and follow that with one sheet of the gold. So that's a little bit darker, quite a bit darker rather, than the yellow. Next up, we're looking for the seafoam green. Now this has a beautiful texture on it, and it's that lighter green color. I'm going to put that texture side down and follow that with one sheet of white. And when you find the sheet of white, just make sure it's white on both sides. Next up, find another yellow. It will get easier as we go through here. Find the next gold. Another seafoam green, that's the lighter green, texture down. And then two sheets of this slate color, or this green color. And I think one side has a little bit of a deeper texture than the other. So I'll put the deepest texture facing down, followed by the two beautiful prints. We'll put those face down. And next up, let's find the Cutapart that has the four darker, or that has the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 darker rectangles on the edge. And then find the one with 3 darker rectangles on the edge. Face down both of those, then just pick up the whole stack, turn it over to the top where we started, and we are going to trim that yellow first. And before we start trimming, I just want to point out I'm using my favorite trimmer. This we carry at Club Scrap. If you're looking for a wonderful trimmer, it's lightweight, self-sharpening. I've been using this particular model for years, and I'm a pretty prolific crafter, so I just love this trimmer. And I'm also using my ingenious accordion pocket file. So this has 4 pockets. A, B, and C represent the 3 sets of cards we're making. And then D is a place I just put things I didn't necessarily use, and you can throw those away later. This might be your scraps, just a few of them. And this way, everything stays organized. We don't have such a mess to sort out at the end of class. And I will put the lip of that underneath my trimmer base so that I can just put everything in these pockets. Now, if you don't have this yet, don't worry. We can change that. But in the meantime, just maintain 3 piles on which you can put your pieces. So like A, B, and C, and D, maybe grab some Post-it notes or something and make those piles. Okay, to get started, I'm just noticing here on my instruction document that there's an arrow on this first sketch. And what that means is the grain of the paper should dip easily in that direction. So if I hold this paper by an edge and I try to wiggle it, boy, it's really heavy. It's pretty stiff. By this edge, it kind of wants to bend or droop. And that's what I'm looking for. When I put this in my trimmer, I want it dipping easily top to bottom. And we're going to trim another one at the same time. So this gold here, that's stiff. If I hold it by the center of this edge, you can see how it dips down. So I want it dipping from top to bottom. Stack the pieces neatly, lift the blade all the way up, and then we're going to find 11 1/4. So that's going left, 1 column from the 11, way over here. Make sure the paper is flush at the top, and then push down on this clear bar to stabilize that paper. And then we'll slide all the way to 7. Next, rotate the 7-inch piece, and we'll trim it at 10. So far, so good. Now let's take these 2 pieces that we just made. These are going to become a card base, both of them, and let's set them aside to be scored. And then this little rectangle that fell off the end, let's put that in pocket C. Next, let's pick up the 4 1/4 by 12 that fell, and we'll trim it at 11 1/2. So find 11, go left 2 columns, 1, 2. That's 11 1/2. Stabilize. And this needs to be scored, so set it aside. And we have these little pieces that fell. Those are for D or for your scrap pile, your circular file, whatever you want. Then we have this long, narrow strip. I'm just going to go ahead and slice this at 6 1/4. And plop these pieces in pocket B. And then these didn't get used, so I'll throw those in D for now, but we'll probably dispose of them later. Now, we're going to do that all one more time. So I'm going to check the grain direction of the seafoam, and it's drooping this way. And then just the plain white. So let's grab that. Oh, definitely wants to droop this way. I hope that grain is making sense to you. And that's because later on we'll be folding the paper in that direction. If we fold with the grain, the folds look better. All right, let's cut again at 11 1/4 and 7. With the rotation, trim at 10. These get stacked with the other cards to be scored, and then this rectangle for pocket C. The next strip here, we'll pick these up. They're 4 1/4 by 12 right now, and we're just going to trim at 11 1/2. This piece gets scored, set it aside, and then you can plop this in D if you like. And then these narrow strips will trim at 6 1/4. Right there. Now see how I'm holding this a little bit lower? If I go up here, it's hard to tell exactly where the 6 1/4 is. If I bring it down, I can see that much better. The piece that's in your trimmer base, pocket B, and the little strips that fell, D. So far, not too many scraps, right? Okay, now that's step 1. We did it 4 times, twice on 2 sheets each. We're going to do the same method, but a different diagram now, or different cutting measurements. So grab the yellow, check your grain. It should once again dip from top to bottom. And that's not always the case. I'm planning ahead for you, and if the arrow points left and right, it should dip the other way, okay? But now we're still dipping up and down with the yellow and the gold, and we'll trim at 11 3/4. Then 10, and then 6 1/4. Rotate and cut at 9. This goes in pocket. This we're going to set aside to be scored for now. And the piece that fell off the end goes in C. The next strip, this is 3 3/4 by 12, we'll cut at 6 1/2. This piece needs to be scored, so set it aside with your score pile. And then the other piece that fell, that goes pocket B. And then we have this strip here. We'll trim at 10 and 6 3/4. This piece in the trimmer base plus the next pieces, those go in C. And there's a little square that fell off the end. It's not quite square. That goes in D because we didn't necessarily use it. Same for these narrow strips. You can add those if you like to something. Otherwise, they get disposed of. Okay, now we have another beautiful seafoam here, dipping top to bottom. And 1 sheet. Now these can stick together, so really make sure you only have 1 sheet of this green. Oh, it's such a beautiful paper. And we're going to repeat all that one more time. I checked the grain, dipping top to bottom. Trim at 11 3/4, 10, and 6 1/4. Rotate and cut at 9. These 2 pieces get scored. This strip, pocket C. This next larger set will trim at 6 1/2. And then this 6 1/2 inch piece gets scored, so set that aside. And this panel goes in pocket B. The narrow strip gets trimmed at 10. Just neaten that up a little bit here. 10 and 6 3/4. This piece and the larger piece that fell, pocket C. And then you've got your rectangles for D and these little strips in D. Now pick up the other sheet of green. We'll trim this at 8. We don't have to worry about grain because we're not folding any of these pieces. Yay! So trim at 8 and 4. And then stack up the two of the 4 by 12s. Okay, the other one gets trimmed differently, but these we can trim at the same time. We'll save ourselves some time here. We'll start at 10 1/2, 8 3/4, 7, 5 1/4, 3 1/2, 1 3/4. Okay, we just made this whole series of pieces, but the two at the bottom, those are going to be more narrow. All right, so these are all the same, and then you have two that aren't the same width. So the two that are smaller, put those in pocket D, and all the rest go in A. Don't panic, we'll just find home for all that stuff. Okay, now this next strip is trimmed a little differently. We'll start at 10 3/4, 9 1/2, 8 1/4, 7, 5 1/4, 3 1/2, 1 3/4. Phew, okay, that was a lot of cuts there. Let's see what we've got. We should have, if we just kept everything in order, 1, 2, 3, 4 that are the same and they're wider. Those go in pocket A with their other friends. Now you also have 4 that are narrower, and we're gonna just stack them all. I know, all 4. It's kind of crazy, but we can do it. We're gonna trim at 3 1/4, 3 1/4, and I can still see my column here if I had this resting at the top. If you want to stand up, you can just make quick work of that. Just choppy choppy. All 4 of these go in pocket B, and I have to tell you that was good. That was going to be a scrap, but I found a cool home for it, so I figured let's just do it, right? And we have some really little scraps here. Those in D. Okay, we're moving on now to step 4, and we have our beautiful print. And I usually save the print for later in the trimming process because the plain papers are easier to replace from your stash if something goes wrong. Now you're all warmed up, okay? And we're gonna do this together. It's gonna be great. Let's start out at 10 1/4. And I have this in here right side up, 10 1/4 and 6. The paper really can go in any direction. I think the coral maybe gives it an orientation, but either way. Let's trim this 6 by 12 at 11, 8 1/4, 5 1/2, 2 3/4. Okay, you should have made 4 the same. Those go in pocket C, and then you have this narrow strip for pocket B. B as in boy. This next piece, we'll trim it in half at 6. Stack them up neatly. They both go in pocket B. Now this would have been a scrap as well, but I found a fun home for it. So we're just going to trim right away at 7 1/2 and 3 3/4. All right, the 2 that you just made, the one in the trimmer and the one that just fell, they should be the same for pocket B. And then this other piece, you can put it in D, David. Okay, moving on to this one. Now this time I want you to take this piece. So if this would be the top, because that's the way that the coral is pointing, just rotate it, okay? So that the top is facing this way. And we'll trim at 11 3/4, 8, and 4 1/4. 4 1/4. We're going to rotate this and trim in half at 6. Stack them up, put them in B, pocket B. All right, now, because this is a print and it tends to be a little bit slippery, I'm going to have you face the white sides together like a little sandwich. Nothing in it though, an empty sandwich. And we're going to make a bunch of cuts here, so just bear with me. Here we go. 10 1/2. We're trimming every 1 1/2 inches. 9, 7 1/2, 6, 4 1/2, 3, and 1 1/2. That's not so bad. Okay, then I'm going to stack these up And I'm going to deal them out, okay? Print, plain, print, plain, print, plain, print, plain, print, plain, print, plain. You get the idea. And just flip these all back over to the right side. Now it's all right side up for pocket A. And this is your little scrap. All right, it's cut apart time. These have been painstakingly mapped out for you. And I just want to point out again, I don't talk about this enough, that everything we just did can be replicated with paper from your stash. We here at Club Scrap want to help you with your stash. So if you wanted to make more cards with these structures, you just substitute papers one for one, okay? And then you take any old sheet of paper and you cut it according to exactly these maps, and you have all the panels for your cards, and then you can adapt them with stamps that you have or maybe other artwork you have. In order to use the Cutaparts, we do need to remove the paper that is beyond the cutting guide right here, this little hash mark. And usually when I cut my first piece, it's much harder to see the edge of the, I cannot see the edge of the blade here at the bottom of the trimmer. It's just not long enough. So in order to compensate for that, I make my first cut a little shy of that mark. And then when I rotate one turn, by this time, I now can see the edge of the silver blade at the top and bottom edges, and I can line that up more accurately with the hash marks. And I'm going to do another rotation and look again at the hash marks top and bottom. Now this time I can look left at the 12, and that should put me at my hash marks, and it does. And same for this final rotation. We're back where we started, shaving off that last little piece. And this is why I love this trimmer so much. Okay, right side up, floating by to say hello should be here. And we're gonna go right down to 8 inches and 7 and 3.5. I rotate. This is going to be nice and easy. 9, 6, 3. All right, to gather these up, they go in pocket A. Pick up the next strip, and we get to do the same measurements. 9, 6, 3. Gather those up. Also pocket A. You're not going to believe this. Let's trim this next strip at 9, 6, and 3. How handy was that? Pocket B. Now that we have that done, we're going to change it. Okay, so place this next strip in so that the dark rectangle's on the right, and our first cut will be at 10 1/4, 8 1/2, 6 3/4, 5, and 3 1/4. Now these shells are all going to be used in set B, and you see how there's a little silhouette around each shell? That's designed so that you can come in with your scissors and you can trim them like in a fussy cut style. For now, I'm just going to trim them apart, and we can deal with that later, and just pop these all in pocket B. Then you have these pretty little rectangles for A, and you have your next sheet of Cutaparts. Now, once again, I will cut shy of the line on my first attempt, then visually line up the guides at the blade. And if you're using this trimmer, you'll know exactly what I mean. You'll be able to see, oh yeah, I can see at the top and bottom. I can look left to find my 12 and confirm at the right that I'm looking good. And one last neaten up cut here on that last rotation, and we're good to go. Okay, so make sure the darker rectangles are on your right. And let's see, our first cut will be at 10 1/4, then 8 3/4, and 4 1/2. Oh, you're gonna have fun with this. Rotate. We're gonna cut at 9, 6, and 3 again. Are you getting used to it? 9, 6, and 3. Gather these up for pocket B. B as in boy. And then we get to trim this at 9, 6, and 3. 9. It's a great way to divide paper, right? 6. 4 cards, 4 panels out of 1 strip. It's so mathematically marvelous. Pocket C on these. And then, oh, guess what? 9, 6, 3. I did a lot of reverse design with this particular pattern so that I could maximize my Cutaparts C on these sentiments. And then last but not least, we're going to trim these at 8 and 4. No scraps at all from the Cutaparts. It's just amazing. And that concludes all of our trimming. So let's swap out our trimmer for a score pal. If you don't have a score pal like this, you will have to find something where you can measure and add like some sort of a folding line. But if you're serious about your card making, definitely pick up one of these. You won't regret it. I use mine all the time and they'll last forever. Okay, so right on the top of my stack, I have this little piece. It measures, I don't know, 3 3/4, I think, by 6 1/2. We're going to place that horizontally into the score pal, and I'm using a metal tipped stylus to score instead of the plastic tool that came in the piece. That does not last forever, okay, but this does. All right, so I need to score this at 3 1/4. That's right down the middle, basically. And notice I hold this like a pencil, and this paper is pretty heavy, so you'll need some pretty aggressive downward pressure on this to get a nice solid line. And then you'll find another one in seafoam. We'll score at 3 1/4. And then if you just peek underneath the next two sheets, you're going to find the same sized papers in gold. We'll score at 3 1/4. And yellow. This is, again, a very, very heavy cardstock, so give it some pressure. 3 1/4. Since we did trim these with the grain, folding them will be nice even if you didn't have a score pal, okay? And this can go in pocket A. Next up, we have in our stack, mine is this green. It's 9 by 6 1/4. It needs to be scored horizontally at 4 1/2. Again, right down the middle. So if you don't have a score pal, no worries. It will still fold in half nicely because we paid attention to the grain. Again, 4 1/2. But a score line does just improve it a little bit. Okay, this goes in pocket B. Now we're going to have some fun. We have these long sheets and we have several score lines to make. Our first two go at 2 inches and 4 inches, then 7 1/2 and 9 1/2. Okay, that's 4 score lines. Now flip the paper from the bottom to the top, okay? And we'll score at 4 1/2 and 7. All right, set that aside. And now for this next one, it has a texture on it. So let's start with the smooth side facing up, and we'll score at 2 and 4, 7 1/2, 9 1/2. Flip the paper bottom to top and score at 4 1/2 and 7. I actually have these numbers memorized. The next two sheets of the same size, you'll have to dig down just a little bit to find them. It's the same exact size, 4 1/4 by 11 1/2. We'll score again at 2, 4, 7 1/2, 9 1/2. All right, now flip from bottom to top. Now go 4 1/2, 7. We get to do that one more time. 2, 4, 7 1/2, 9 1/2. Bottom goes to the top. 4 1/2, 7. Okay, so they're kind of mirrors of each other, right? Alternatively, honestly, if you're like watching this first and not making it, and you're like, no, I didn't really want to do that, you can literally fold these cards in half and then just improvise a little bit on the assembly. No problem, okay? This goes in pocket A. I'm going to tell you that several times during this workshop, that there's a different way to do it that's less complicated. If you feel more comfortable with that, go for it. All right, this one is 10 on the horizontal. We're going to score it in half at 5. A nice single fold to wrap up our session. All of them get scored at that beautiful whole number of 5. All right, stack these up and they're going to go in pocket C. Now, wouldn't it be crazy if we just put this all in random unorganized piles? We'd have a really hard time figuring out what went where. So that's why it's nice to have the pocket or pile system. Let's set aside this core pal. And we can also turn in our instructions to page 3 if you're following along there. This is the fun clamshell card we're gonna make. And it's just so cute, right? It just is like, hello. It's got a little pop-up kind of built in, and these little wings that fold out with this sentiment popping up. And it's cute on display, and then you have plenty of room for your sentiment as well, plus all the beautiful artwork, okay? And it mails flat. It fits right in your little envelope that came in the kit. So the smallest envelope is what this is gonna go into. Let's take everything out, and there's a lot in there, of pocket A. And if you wanna do all of the cards at once, you know, it's kinda nice to just get them all assembled at once. We're just gonna start out by dealing out all these pieces so each card gets what it's going to have, okay? So we're going to start with this mint colored card base. I'm trying to figure out the best way to put this out so you can see, probably horizontal. I'll get this out of the way. All right, mint. And then let's go yellow. Can you see that? Yes, okay. Then gold and white. All right. That wasn't so bad. Got our card bases distributed. Next up, we have these other scored pieces. So we're going to go, let's see, gold here, mint, or sea foam, I guess we're calling it, followed by this yellow and then the green. Now, there are these pieces. There should be 8 of them, of these darker colored ones. So just deal 2 to each card, like just like you're playing cards, right? Then you have all of these green pieces, big stack. Each card gets 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, get the idea. 3, 4, and it can stick together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Guess what we get to do with all these beautiful prints? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we have our sentiments. So the first one I had was floating by to say hello and happy birthday. So those 2 go there. I was going to tell the joke about retired people, but none of them work. Congratulations on your retirement. Isn't that cute? What did the fish have to pay to get past the coral reef? A toll. Thinking of you on your special day. We have 2 of those for you. Now, since all of these cards assemble the same exact way, I'm going to go ahead and take everything that was laid out for that 4th card, and I'm just going to slide it all into the smallest envelope. Same with this guy. We'll go in the smallest of your 3 sets of envelopes. And of course this one too. And these will be all ready to assemble, and you'll have the knowledge once you do the one with me, okay? Now the first thing we need to do is optional, okay? Let me show you on the finished card. Do you see how this, if you look at the back, do you see how the card base dips down at these 2 spots? And it kind of just makes that pop out like a little panel. I don't know, it's invisible pop out sort of a deal. If you leave it in place, the only difference will be that this will be complete going straight across. I'm going to show you how to take out that 1/2 inch piece and where to do that. To help me, I'm going to grab my Club Scrap grid ruler. I have this in a 2x8, a 3x14, and an 8x8. Either size will work, but this to me is the most ideal. And then I have a craft knife. If you're not comfortable with a craft knife, that's okay. Again, you can omit the step. You could use scissors instead. But with the ruler, I kind of get 2 things in one here when I use it to measure. So there are a series of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 score lines. We are going to be making a cut from the 1, 2 second score line, 3, 4, 5 to the 5th score line, from number 2 to number 5. And in this case, it's the bump side. Those 2 score lines land on a bump. All right, so I notice I'm positioning my paper vertically, so I'm comfortable. And I want to cut from point to point 1/2 inch from the edge. So the only thing I'm measuring now is just 1, 2, 3, 4 cubes on my ruler from this edge. And I'm going to start here and stop at that 2nd score line. All right, so let me show you what I have. See that? I'm going to turn it around and do the same exact thing. So 1, 2, 3, 4 cubes from the edge of the paper with my ruler. I always hold my craft knife like a pencil, push down and bring the knife toward me, and it has a nice sharp blade. I find a lot of people struggle with their craft knives and think they can't do it. It's because you don't have a good blade. Now with scissors, I'm just going to go in and basically just remove the bump of the score line. You could do this with your craft knife as well, but for such a short cut, I feel really comfortable using my scissors. Ha, easy peasy, right? So you just removed a 1/2 by 3.5 inch strip from the card. And again, that step is optional. I want to have it like, you know, you have like good, better, best, or like you low impact, medium impact, high impact aerobics, kind of like that. All right, now we have these series of scores. And if the bump of the score is facing you, the bump goes inside the fold. So I'm just going to fold in on that first bump. Now the next score line is a bump also. So I'm going to make another fold there. So the bump is on the inside. Now here it's a divot. So I need to go the other direction with this one and the next one. And then I have another bump here. So I need to put that score inside the fold, and then same on the last one. So what you've constructed now is a stationer's quality series of folds, a valley, a mountain, a valley, a valley. And that's what makes that cool pop-up, okay? Now, we have all of these wonderful things that are nesting. Maybe we can do this one too. Here we have the other scored piece. Find the bump, put it on the inside of the fold, and always just check to make sure your ends line up, and you can crease that. If you want, you can use a bone folder as well to give it a really nice crease. I like to do that. Ribbon wise, I did use a stapled piece on this particular one. So I'd like to cut with my ribbon 2 angles sort of facing each other to make a trapezoid shape. Fold it in half, and I'm going to bring it over here and give that a little staple. You can attach your ribbon any way you like in this series of cards. I just felt that there was an open space there and I could use it. And then I'm grabbing my ATG adhesive. And for some of you, I know that you don't feel comfortable with an adhesive tool this large, but I do love it for one reason. I can always find it. It's nice bright red. And secondly, it's the most economical way to add. I do have a video on how to use it. And if you're new to it, just make sure you give yourself some time to adjust to what it is. I know people who've been using it for years absolutely love it. So we have an inner sentiment for this little fold out as well. Okay, so I'm just going to set that aside. That's all done. Now I'm going to do some assembly here. I'm going to take all of the prints and maybe these darker pieces, put them all face down. And instead of going I'm going to go the short end. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then on the bottom half, 2, 3, 4, top half, and the bottom edge. Okay. These 2 larger pieces they can go. I really didn't really know where I wanted to put them, but I put them on the area to the right of the pop-up and the left of the pop-up, okay? Then I have all of my green mats, so I can do a little nesting, and mathematically, if I was successful in my measuring and trimming, they're going to center perfectly on to these mats. And this is the joy again of this style of card making. You know, we don't just give you the measurements you need for all these pieces. We help you cut them in the most efficient way possible. And that way your paper can go a long way and you feel really good and confident about how you're going to use it, right? Okay. So now I'm going to make sure my seaweed and my coral is facing the right direction. The top of the card, which is now officially determined. And then if you just close that flap and add it there as well. So it's going to look really nice when it's closed. Sweet. Okay, last but not least, we got to get this guy attached. And it's the perfect size for this pop-up. So if the card is flat, I'm going to put adhesive only within the center area of the pop-up only. And then if the card is flat, I can center it between this panel and this panel. I don't even have to measure anything. It just does it for me. And I'm done, okay? So when you are going to mail this card, see how that pop-up bends back? And then this sandwich is around it like a little clam. Rah, rah, rah. I feel like I'm in a silly mood today. It is Friday night and everyone's gone and I'm just here by myself with my clamshell card floating by to say hello and happy birthday. Isn't that cute? It's really unique and wonderful. And I thought, you know, this is fun. It's worth trying to figure it out, figure out a good formula for it. So of course you'll go ahead and make 3 more cards just like this. And the artwork is a little different on the next one. So instead of stapling the ribbon, I just chose to thread some across with my double looped bow here. And I do have a ribbon basics video on YouTube if you want to look that up if you don't know how to add ribbon like this. I love this. I was going to tell a joke about retired people, but none of them work. And then another joke. What did the fish have to pay to get past the coral reef? A toll. Now on this card, you see how I've added a couple of these little mini textured sequins. So to do that, I took some bookbinding glue, made a little dot, and I'll probably show you this later. And I picked up the sequins with my tweezers and just placed them onto the glue. I didn't try to put glue on the sequin, put the glue on the paper and brought the sequin to the glue. And it just adds a little something special. And in here, I added the ribbon differently. I did a double looped bow, and here I just did a staple. So it's just all a matter of personal preference. And then again, this will fit right inside the A2 envelopes we've provided to you in your kit. Next, we'll turn to page 4 in our instructions, and I'm going to empty everything out of pocket B. Take a few moments and organize all the pieces in order by size. All right, let's begin with our green card base, then our sea foam, then yellow and gold. Each one will get one of these beautiful prints. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And 2 of them are going to be vertical. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn these vertical. And you can see that the pattern actually cooperates. There should be 2 horizontal and 2 vertical. In the end, it's quite a bit is going to be covered, so it won't really matter. Now, do not distribute these bad boys quite yet, okay? Next, I want to hand out some sentiments. So how about, oh, we got to start with the smaller ones here. You are amazing. Birthday wishes. And the 2 vertical cards will be Life is Better and Flip Flops. Each one gets a little mat for the sentiment. And these 2 horizontal cards get a second printed mat. I found a home for it, right? For the inside, the green card gets a mint strip. Or sea foam, rather. The sea foam gets a yellow. The yellow gets a gold, and the gold gets a white and a print. Just chose to do both. Each one gets a little seashell too. So we'll do a yellow, a gold, sea foam, and a green. Now let's distribute our inner sentiments. I'll always remember your kindness. Thank you. Today is your birthday, so celebrate in style. And then enjoy your birthday on these other 2. Okay, now notice that I didn't distribute these other panels. I didn't forget about them, but there's something very unique that we're going to do with these panels. Let's take that printed panel and move it to the top of these stacks. And just for now, I'm going to have you move this so it's vertical, okay? Just bear with me, okay? But just do a little rearranging, no big deal. For distribution of the panels, you have 2 choices. You can simply choose a color and add it to the card. So I could go like 1, 2, 3, 4 and be done. Okay, and just put your sentiment on there, okay? That's option 1. And if you are a beginner, maybe that's all you want to do, and that's totally fine. I'm going to show you a little technique called stack, cut and shuffle. It's been around for a while, and we're just gonna have a little fun with this. And you can do 3 cuts or just 2 cuts. Now I have an illustration here in the instructions right here that shows kind of how I did my stack and shuffle, but you can do it however you wish. I mean, really, I don't even know if I did that way. So I'm going to make my first cut from about here to about there. Now, I know some of you are going to ask me for measurements, but no, I'm not going to give them to you, okay? I'm just going to, let's see, yes, from here down to there. All right. Now I cut through 4 layers of paper at the same time. Make sure you're standing. That's probably a good idea. So I've reassembled these so I can kind of keep track of what's going on. Now I'm going to add an angled cut that goes right from about here to about there, keeping everything neatly stacked together. Let's see, I want to angle, right, like kind of like that. Okay, then the goal here is like, oh gosh, how was that? It was like that. Okay, now I'm going to go from about here to about there. This technique is so fun. Let's see. Probably would have been better to be higher. Okay, so now I have my stack and shuffle. I'm going to carefully remove these from my trimmer and lay them over here, because we really want to keep track of how this all comes back together. Trust me, if you kind of lose track of it, it can be a real mind bender. Now we have to distribute, okay? So I'm just going to take this stack from the upper left corner and put 1 on each print. 2, 3, 4. Then I'm going to take the next stack. So this is the bottom left corner, but I'm not going to start where I started last time. I'm going to go 1 card over. 1, this is the shuffle part. 2, 3, 4. I'm going to go top right corner, but I'm not going to start here or here. I'm going to start on my 3rd card. Card 3, card 4, card 1, card 2. All right, my last stack. This one doesn't have the green, so I start here. Go back up top. 2, 3, and 4. There. Cool, right? It's such a fun little technique. And again, if you are not interested in trying that, no problem. Okay, now what I'd recommend too is don't put this into the envelope. Oh, we got the wrong size here. Don't put this into the envelope. If you don't want to have a puzzle, otherwise you will be, but you can always compare your other cards, your original card, if you do want to save the rest of the work for later. I know a lot of you who would like to attend crops are starting to just get this far with your cards, and then you go to the crop and you don't need to bring 4,000 pounds of gear. You can just bring your prepped cards and work on them with your friends and impress them with your productivity and your lack of stuff you have to carry. Just come with your trimmer, adhesive, a few basic supplies, and you'll get so much done. All right, so I'm going to set those aside. This is the card we're going to make together, and I'm going to show you some great tips for assembly here. Because of the odd shape, I'd like to use my bookbinding glue, and I keep that in a needle tip applicator, and I store it in the base of my tape dispenser. Now, I like to have some reliable spacing, and once again, I'm going to use my ruler, and I'm going to give you sort of a weird measurement. Every cube on this is 1/8 of an inch, and for the space between the edge of the panel and the piece, I want it to be, what I found works out really well, is 3/16. Now, don't freak out. 3/16 is basically 1.5 cubes on my ruler. So I'm just going to put it, here's my rulers on here at 1 cube, and I'm just going to split it in half and bring it halfway. And then I'm going to just make it so that I have a line at the top and bottom edge of the card as well. So now my ruler is in, well, 3/16 of an inch from the edge of the card. Okay, so I'm going to take this piece, flip it. I don't want to lose track of how it's situated. Sometimes, I'm telling you, it's really like a puzzle. I'm going to add the glue and deliver it back to the card 1.5 cubes from the top edge, with the left edge of this shape resting along the edge of my ruler. the next piece, just go around the perimeter here and go 1.5 cubes up from the bottom edge. With those 2 pieces installed, I'll just rotate it 180 degrees, put my ruler 3/16 of an inch from the edge, pick up the top one. Now I'm right-handed, so you might want to just reverse everything if you are left-handed. 1.5 cubes from the edge, resting along the edge of the ruler. I just double check here. And my 4th and final piece. Now again, this is a little bit, I don't know what you want to call it. High maintenance. I don't know. I think it's fun. It's cool looking. You could run this through an embossing machine now and someone will be like, how did you do that? That's really cool. Okay, it just has a neat look. Now, here's my card base. I'm going to find my bump and fold on that so the bump is on the inside. Here's my bone folder. I can put my craft knife away from my last card. And here we go. This is going to be the horizontal card. And it's not going to look like the one in here, okay? I use different colors. I guess there are it's the same. Very, very similar. Okay, we'll just go with it. All right, so here we go. I can nest this and center. All right, now I had some optional nesting that I did with this as well. I had the spare print and I had the spare green, so I'm going to take the sentiment and "You Are Amazing" gets nested onto the green, and then this will get nested onto the print. So sweet. Then I'm going to take some foam adhesive and I'll just add some to the back here. I want a little bit of height on this. So that I can tuck the shell applique behind it, and you'll know what I mean in a moment. So here's where I want you to be careful with your placement of the sentiment. I'm trying to avoid a corner of this touching an edge or a corner of any of this. So the best way to do that is just cover it all. Look at that. This is the perfect spot. None of these corners are touching an edge of anything. I don't want this or this. I don't want this or this, okay? So I'm just kind of placing it so it's covering all those edges. All right, now reach for one of those cool shell appliques, and it's gonna fit beautifully right in there. So I think the best way to attach these is just grab some book binding glue on there and just give it a little tuck. Also avoiding edges if I can. Okay, now I'm going to do the sequins, show you how I did it, but first I'm going to go inside the card. And I'm going to start out by adding the anchoring strip. Now, again, this would have been a scrap. This is a completely optional step. All right, so the cards can be as complicated or as simple as you desire. All right, notice I used my ruler to keep it level, and then I'll add this guy. And here we have our shell, and I love that Jacqueline puts the little silhouette so that you have an easy time determining where to cut, and it's always a nice, gently curving line, not a whole lot of complex turns and crevices to get into. So it's just kind of a bonus. In fact, this little piece would have been a scrap, but Jacqueline chooses to put art on them so we can, you know, level up. How sweet is that? A lovely card. Now, sequins. I have put mine in a little Ziploc bag here so I can get to them easily. And I'm just going to take 3 random. And this was a mix. And the mix is not like, there's a little bit of a pink hue and some of these. And I thought, you know what? It's fine. It's just lovely. Okay, I'm just going to add 3 dots of glue, and then I'll pick one of them up with my tweezers and just drop it on. You want this to be the last thing you do, because then you can set it aside for everything to dry. That's it. You are amazing. that is set B, my friends. Let's take everything out of pocket C next. Once you get everything out of the pocket, I still recommend sorting those pieces out by size. It'll just be a little easier to get organized with all of these strips and prints and so on. And now we have our card bases, and I think for the interest of sizing, let's go ahead and fold them in half. So I'm just gonna line up those edges. I always say never trust a score line. I always like to just double check that the paper was level, and you just get your maximum alignment by eyeballing it first and confirming that you're not just blindly assuming that all of these edges are going to line up. And then that final score line will be spot on if you are careful. There we go. Okay, next up, we'll distribute them according to what we see on page 5. So I'm going to start with white, then yellow, gold, and seafoam. Next, from our series of panels, we have shorter ones that are longer. That's what we're looking for. I didn't have everything sorted quite as much as I should have. Okay, these are the largest. These are 2x7s. They would have been a scrap, but now they're going to be anchoring strips on the front of our card. We have gold here, white, seafoam, and yellow. Then we have the, let's see, this is going to be 1 3/4 by 6 3/4 because they're going to nest perfectly onto this. So let's go seafoam. Do you see how that nests so nicely? Then gold. Next, yellow and green. And now we have larger colored panels, but they're a little shorter, but wider. So we're just distributing one of each color basically to each card. We have the yellow, seafoam, green, and gold. Now it's easy. Print, 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 print. Then sentiment mat. Okay, we've got gold, the missing color, kind of, green, mint, and yellow. And our sentiments themselves, let's go friend, all you need is love, and the 2 sympathy cards. Next up, for the friend, such a simple word for one of the great necessities of life. I love that. I have a lot of special women I could send that to. Let's see. All you need is love and the beach. Happy anniversary. Love that. Got to have an anniversary card every once in a while. Whenever I attend a wedding, here's a tip. Put the wedding date in your calendar as a recurring event. That way, 5 years from now, you'll probably be one of the only people to be sending that couple an anniversary card, and they will cherish it always. Okay, then you have your sympathy cards ending. Now, I will grab one of each of these cool shell laser cut pieces. Bear with me on these, super fun. And I have my envelopes, of course, for our let's do these later pile. It's important we just get to them later, right? That's 2, and that's 3. All right, we're gonna make this one together. I did a little something different with ribbon for each card. I did a crisscross thing. I did the shell thing. Oh, so much fun. We can go ahead and nest this friend. Don't nest everything though. We got a couple of things we got to take care of. And we can nest the print onto its mat. So this one's going to go on the yellow. Don't set that on the card yet. And then we can attach this mint seafoam to the gold. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Here we go. Now, before we attach this to the card, I want to do something fun with these shells. I'm going to take scissors, and I am going to cut just below the perforation here into the square to remove the shell. 1, rotate, repeat, rotate, and repeat for the last time. Leave this one on, okay? Fun. Now, where's my ruler? Take my grid ruler, and there's my 0 center, and I'm going to place this ruler against the green part of this panel and find the center. It's going to be 3.5 from the gold on each end, but it's resting against the green. Okay, so what I want to do is add a shell at the center. So just make sure you get the same number on the left of the 0 to the right of the 0. In this case, it's about 5/8. And then just pick a random spot on this side. I'm going to put it edge on the 3 and a random spot on this side. Same random spot, the 3. And they should be pretty equally spaced. Let's see. Nice. Okay. I always like to start with the center. I'll take my bookbinding glue again out of my tape holder. I'm just going to add, it doesn't take much, okay? I'm just resting these against my ruler, which is also against the edge of that seafoam panel. I'm going to go again to the 3. You could eyeball this too and not worry about centering. I'm just kind of a ruler girl. I like to have it centered. And I think one of these, I didn't have it correctly centered, so it's off. And it was too late to change anything, so I just left it. Okay, so, you know, there you go. Sometimes it works, sometimes you mess it up, it still doesn't matter. So now I'm going to add adhesive to my gold panel. And once again, use my ruler to attach this 2 cubes from the edge of the folded edge of the card. And then I have the tops of the shells facing left, bottoms are facing right. Before I add this, I'm going to add some ribbon. So I'm going to trim, we have 2 yards of this gorgeous organza in a nice thin width, easy to work with. And I chose to just string it across. And I have a fabric scissors I like to use for ribbon. I never cut paper with this. And I'm just going to take it one length and I'm just going to string this around to the back and just tape it. And I'm going to bring it across at an angle and tape it on the other side. That's why I like to have a tape dispenser. It's kind of like having a second hand. Then I'm going to add this ribbon right next to the first one. And I'll tape that too. And then I will bring this around so it crisscross. Sweet. And you can use any of my other ribbon tricks, okay? It doesn't have to be this one. It's not even a trick. It's just something fun because I had a lot of ribbon. Now I'm going to attach this centered 1/4 inch from the right edge of the card. So it's 2 cubes and 3.5 and 3.5 are my measurements. Again, the ruler is not necessary, but I just have this terrible propensity to glue things onto my cards crooked. And then I walk away and I'm disappointed. See how lovely this is coming together? And now we have our friend. You can attach it with just adhesive or foam adhesive, your choice. I like to just do it right over the crisscross of the ribbon. So lovely. Then we'll add our inner sentiment. You could reach into pocket D if you wanted to find things that you can enhance your card with. Like for example, I found a piece of, you can use the green or the mint. Comes in a little square. Maybe I'll use the mint on this one, but check this out. It's like the same size as the shell. So I'm going, because I have a white card base here, I am going to attach the shell to this light green or seafoam green here. And I didn't need to take this off, and you'll see why in a moment. I will then add this to the upper center of my card. And then here's the sentiment. Ta-da! It's a card, set C card. Isn't it beautiful? All right, now let me show you all of them. So this is the friend one that we made together. Oh, the sequins. I added sequins the same way I showed you on the previous card. Just 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, there was a 5th one there. He must have fallen off. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Isn't that beautiful? Here I nested the ribbons instead. I had enough. I had plenty. I could have probably done it twice. So beautiful. I did another crisscross, and then I just did one. So I could have put more organza or chiffon on this one too. It would have been really pretty, but alas, I just did it. with one. Oh my goodness, this reef collection is a beauty. I know it's going to be a big hit with everyone. I hope you loved it, and if you liked it a lot and you would like to make a project or pages for scrapbook pages out of this collection, we do have our page kit available, so pick that up. While you're here on the video, take just a second, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment if you learned something new, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We do go live here once in a while, and we are post very regularly, and I don't want you to miss anything we've got coming out here at Club Scrap. I look forward to seeing you in another card class soon. Thanks for joining me.